Buenas, hello everybody. Welcome to my March wrap-up. We're going to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of March. Quite excited to talk about several of these books because I think overall, was every book I read last month a 5-star? It very well might have been the case. I've been having a really good reading year, mostly because I've just been wanting to have fun, not pressuring myself to read. It's been really coming in handy. I did, however, have my first DNF of the year in March, which I was not expecting, though I should have, because the book that I DNF'd all in all made sense. I was already scared to read it. I was already scared that it wouldn't deliver and that it wouldn't be that good in comparison to the first book. And so all in all, I think I should have expected it, except that I didn't. But that aside, I did have a pretty great reading month, so I do want to run you through all of these books. There is only one that I won't be going that in depth with, only because it is part of a video that has yet to come out, but I will, for the sake of the wrap up, include it in here. And don't forget to let me know in the comments, what did you read in the month of March? Did you like the books? Did you not like the books? Just give me like a comprehensive rundown if you want on all of the things that you read, and let's get into it. We have a word from our sponsor, which is why we're going to do a very quick aside to thank Bellesa for partnering with me on today's video to actually bring you guys a giveaway. Bellesa is a by women company that is focused on all things sexuality, from sex toys to sex education, all the way to erotica, and their mission is to empower everyone to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. And for every single person that actually clicks the link at the top of the description will win something. So whether you win a free vibrator or a free gift card, everybody's getting something. And right here I've got examples of things you could potentially win, and look at the packaging. Super discreet, super cute, so you don't have to worry about them just like laying around there, because they've got their own individual cases. The Demi Wand, which is compact and discreet. Not only that, it works for all body types, and it is whisper quiet, so you don't have to worry about anything making too much noise. The Pebble, which has suction and vibration, but they're controlled completely separate, so you can do one or the other or both. Or the Thumb, which does it all. It vibrates, it suctions, and it also thumbs, and it utilizes Bellesa's improved pleasure jet technology. And they not only have these options, but if you go to their website, you're going to find a wide array of different toys, vibrators, and different things that you can also utilize to explore your body and explore your sexuality, so they've got something for everyone. And listen, between us girly pops, I know how intimidating it can be to kind of get started on that journey, so I think this makes it pretty easy. Don't forget to click the link in the description, and thank you so much to Bellesa for sponsoring today's video. And I started out the month with an audiobook that was a carry-on from Rollover Carry-On. All of these terms just confuse me, but basically a book that I started out in February, but I finished it in March, and that's a memoir, Finding Me by Viola Davis, if I do say so, my woman king. Ariana DeBose has truly and thoroughly immortalized herself. Many know her as the Bullet in Hamilton. I did so too, and then she went ahead and did a thing, as did Angela Bassett, and you know what? I had to say it that way. I'm so very deeply sorry. That being said, I absolutely love this one. I think to nobody's surprise, if you've already read this one, I gave it 5 stars. All of the memoirs I've been reading this year so far, I think can be summed up into the pockets of wisdom are really what makes these books so great. Obviously, aside from the fact that you get such an intimate view into these celebrities, actors, actresses' lives in a way that we really don't get to see in media, because the media just works overtime to dehumanize and strip people of their privacy so much that I think when we see things, I guess, from a different perspective and something coming from the source itself, it just reads so differently. And in this one in particular, I just loved all the vulnerability that came with it. It is truly a comprehensive look into Viola's life, growing in poverty and slowly making her way into acting through school and activities out of school, and really grinding and working her ass off in order to get to where she is and carve and earn her place. And I think more than anything, aside from getting to see her journey in that, a lot of it is coming from the point of view of feeling so lost and really feeling like you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going. And I think the way it sums up a lot of the time is that it is never a holistic singular journey, but but rather you find bits and pieces of yourself through the people that you meet, through the places that you visit, through the actions you take or that you don't take. And I loved every single second of that. And then I read arguably the coziest fantasy ever, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I was late to the train on this one. I feel like everybody and their mama and their grandma has read this book, but I finally got here and I absolutely loved this one. I gave it 5 stars. We follow Viv, who is an orc, and she is done slaying monsters and slaying creatures. She is done creating bloodshed, even if it's for good reason. She is done with that life, and she is very determined to build a life for herself from scratch. She has a high entrepreneurial spirit as well, so she is dead set into opening her own cafe, which is Legends and Lattes, and she will enlist the help of many people in the town that she arrives in order to work together and make this dream a possibility. And I loved the found family aspect in this book. It was so very wholesome because it's not something that happens overnight, and it's also not something that happens in a very forced way. Although the book is very short, I was fearing that it could feel that way, but it was truly an excellent example of loyalty and really wanting to be there for people when they need you the most, and lending out and extending that helping hand in a very genuine way. And I loved every second of that. Also, the descriptions of everything in this book were so fucking cozy. I loved the descriptions of the coffee, the descriptions of all of the pastries that were being baked. It really ultimately made for the best time. I listened to the Streets of Whiterun, by the way, from Skyrim all throughout my read, and I think it just enhanced it even more. And I love that even though it is high fantasy, because all of the creatures exist in high fantasy, it is very, very low stakes and immensely cozy. It is just so good. Next up, I have got the book that single-handedly put me back on my fantasy shit. I was not expecting this in any way, shape, or form. I think you might be as surprised as I am, because honestly speaking, I was ready to cap it. I was like, okay, so like that was a good run with fantasy. Maybe that's not my favorite genre anymore. And listen, that's totally okay if it would have been, but I think it's almost like a death moment. Just if we were to talk about it in tarot, it's like a transformative tower death moment. A new genre could become a new favorite. However, I didn't want to let go because fantasy has been my bitch for such a long time. Like, it's been my tried and true, and it's pulled me out of so many difficult situations, and it's amazing escapism. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo also did the thing. And I was so surprised because after my reread of Ninth House, which I definitely did not enjoy, I was taken aback by how much I loved this and how much fantasy this made me want to read afterwards. In Ninth House, we follow Alex Stern, who has the ability of seeing greys, which are ghosts, and she is offered an opportunity to go to Yale full ride if she provides her services of seeing ghosts to Lethe, which is all of the secret societies residing in Yale. And in the midst of book 1 and book 2, there's not only a disappearance, but there are also murder mysteries. There are many a thing to solve. And ultimately, none of them know what the fuck they're doing or what the hell they're messing with, but we're here. And this one was truly a ride. We made our way to hell, people. Hi. I think why primarily is that this book is not concerned with making any statements or any commentary. If it does so, it does so very naturally, very seamlessly integrated into the story. It just flows very nicely, which I appreciate, because in book 1, it didn't necessarily feel that way, or it felt kind of halfway complete. And so I really liked the execution of that in this book. And more than anything, this book was a true fantasy, whereas Ninth House could potentially be more categorized into the dark academia aesthetic and fantasy taking kind of like a second plane up until you get to the 3rd act. All the way through, Hellbent is a fantasy, and I absolutely adored that. Also, the character growth that we get to see from the characters from book 1 into this one, and particularly Alex, who was a very pessimistic, fatalistic character in the first one, we get to see her actually being willing to help now. And it's not because she has to do it, but it's rather because she wants to. It is born out of a place of goodwill because she has people to protect now and she cares about those people. And the magic system made a lot more sense in this one. I feel like Darlington in this one, I will never not say it, is my favorite thing of this series, and I could not put this down. I was just turning page after page, and now we're back to it. Lessons in Chemistry was also read, and I absolutely adored this. If you don't know, I read this in my try a chapter video where I not only tried first chapters, but I also also vlogged, non-spoiler, the entirety of Lessons in Chemistry, which was, spoiler alert, the book that I ended up choosing. And this was also a 5-star book. The ending made me cry. Essentially, we follow Elizabeth Zott, who is a chemist. And although she works at a research institute, her entire branch is full of men. And with that comes a lot of discrimination, a lot of misogyny, a lot of toxic masculinity, a whole lot of everything, really, especially with the book being set in the 1950s and 60s. It just is a part of the landscape of what things used to look like for women back then, where things were immensely limited. And so Elizabeth, not being a part of the status quo for women, she is constantly defying all of those standards and all of those parameters. And then she is offered the opportunity to be the host of a cooking show called Supper at 6. And the way she approaches it is very differently because she does so through the lens of chemistry. And it is also very, very interesting. And we get to see her entire life, from when she is studying in college to when she is at the research institute, to her very transformative relationship with Calvin Evans. Every single part of this book was a statement. I love how the book was not afraid to really sort of debunk and really deconstruct all of these different ideals and really establish what I think a lot of women are continuously seeking, which is equality in a lot of ways. And I love that the book never stepped into any radical feminist talk, which there is a space for that, I think, in literature. However, I love that the book was mostly zen. There are spots in the book where the female rage sort of takes over, and it sort of breaks that monotony of Elizabeth being very zen, and I love that because I think those moments are also very real. But if you want to know more, it's in that video. Cute boy. My first DNF of the year, Queen of Myth and Monsters. I don't even know what to say. I mentioned in my book haul, my most recent one, where I hauled this, that I was very, very scared of reading it because the first book ended on one of my not so favorite tropes, and I was very scared of how it was going to execute that in book 2. Now, for a synopsis, we basically follow Isolde, who is a princess, and Adrian, who is the vampire king. They enter a marriage of convenience, and although they are enemies or are said to be enemies, they obviously start getting to know each other, and their whole views of the world and each other are altered. I love, though, that even though they do obviously enter a romantic phase, he never stops being deadly. He never stops being antagonistic when he can be. But I also loved in the first book that it was never towards her. There was always this balance of, you and I will take over the world together, but you are my equal. You know what? Just girly things. We literally just had an earthquake. I'm here. Hi. Yes, they both gave each other their place in the first one, and surprisingly in the second one, the thing I thought I would hate, I did not. However, I did hate that they did not give each other their spaces in this one. This one did the complete opposite, a complete 180 of the first one. He was possessive and he was controlling, and he did not allow her to do her thing. And I hated every single second of that. The smut in this one was also immensely bland in comparison to the first one. I read 50% of the book and nothing had happened to advance the plot in any way. It had no vibes either, so it was just immensely frustrating because I was expecting it to do all the things, and apparently from what I've heard, Scarlett Sinclair just isn't really good apparently at second books and series based on what I have seen you guys comment. So I DNF'd this one. I wanted to finish it. My patrons, though, shout out to y'all, encouraged me to just DNF the book and just call it a day. And it's true, I do want to DNF books this year that I'm not enjoying, so I'm happy for the push because it was the right move, it was the right thing to do. And not only that, but also 50% is enough. Enough is enough. And after Queen of Myth and Monsters, I actually read the newest volume to Spy Family. So I did read Spy Family Volume 9 right after, and I loved that one. I gave it 5 stars. It might just be my favorite volume. Oh, Syl, she is an acrobat today. I did give it 5 stars, and if you don't know what Spy Family is about before I carry on, Spy Family is a manga series that follows Twilight, who is a secret agent. Think of it as if he was like 007, those kind of vibes. And he is tasked with a mission to protect the nation against war that is potentially brewing. And in order to do that, he needs to recruit a fake wife and a fake daughter, except that what he doesn't know is that the wife is an assassin and the daughter is a telepath. And so it is the perfect mix and brew for serotonin, first of all, and also a lot of laughter. The comedy in the series is top tier. And what I love about this particular volume is the mix of everything. It is comedic, but it is also action-packed. It is also heartfelt. And I think we are starting to see these characters finally get to a place where they are genuinely thinking of each other as family, where they are thinking of each other as a unit. And although the dynamics are not fully quite there yet, because there are still many a thing to do, they are very much fostering that environment for each other. And even the thought of it not being that anymore is starting to cause some sort of feeling, which I love. And I can't wait for volume 10 to come out. I thought it would come out 3 months from now, but it is coming out in October. And we're not going to talk about it because I'm still pissy about it. And then the very last thing I read in the month of March, I almost said in the month of September, and I don't know where I was going with that, is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This is my very first Carissa Broadbent book, and now I want to read everything she has ever made. Listen, between Leigh Bardugo and Miss Carissa Broadbent, I am back to fantasy. I would also argue Travis Baldry, because I just really had a great fantasy month in March. We followed Tasana, who was sold into slavery when she was super young, and now as an adult, she is yearning to get out of this life. And listen, she bosses her way out of it, and I absolutely love that for her. And her mission is to help those in similar situations to her and get them out of that landscape. And in order to do that, she needs to go to the orders to get their help. And because of that, she has to train her powers. She gets a trainer called Max, and that's where the fantasy romance aspect walks into the story, because it is a fantasy romance. What I will say though is that it's slow burn, and I appreciate the fact that it's slow burn. I think more often than not, we tend to see these fantasy romances that are very fast paced. This one takes its time. It's not afraid to do so. And the journey makes sense because we get to see every single second of that. To me, that's like super important when I see any sort of romance. I want to understand exactly what about this dynamic works so much to the point where these characters cannot live without each other. I also thought the plot and the world were super phenomenal. And honestly, she's giving me Dark Phoenix / Wanda Maximoff vibes, and that's all you need to know. He very much gives me Damon Salvatore vibes, where he's very sarcastic and witty. It's giving Damon and Elena in season 4 and 5, minus the toxicity, because there is, I would argue, not a lot of toxic aspects to their relationship, and I love that. And yes, friends, those are all of the books that I read in the month of March. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. Again, let a girl know in the comments what you guys read. I would love to know. Maybe there's some overlap, maybe there's not. Have you read these books? Did you enjoy these books? Let a girl know all of that down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It is called Talk and Talk. If you want to support any of this stuff further, I do have a Patreon. It is linked down below. It has a bunch of different perks, from live shows to a book club to readathons to extra videos. You can always find that alongside all of my socials. Love y'all, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye!